Before you settle in, a warning. Some stories have a way of following you out of the dark. The faces are everywhere. We just don't see them. They smile from billboards selling dental insurance. They nod confidently in corporate pamphlets, and they cheer in online ads for retirement funds. They are the stock photo people, beautifully generic, impossibly happy, and completely forgettable. I started noticing them because of my job. I'm a graphic designer, and my day is spent trawling through photo libraries, looking for the perfect person looking thoughtfully at a laptop or diverse group of friends laughing over salad. I see thousands of these faces every single week. The first time I saw one of them in my dreams, I was deeply unsettled, but I quickly dismissed it. It was smiling woman with headset. You know her. She's the one who looks like she's about to give you excellent customer service. In the dream, she wasn't smiling. She was standing in a dark hallway, holding a phone and looking directly at me with an expression of profound, tired sadness. I woke up immediately. I figured it was a classic case of pareidolia, my brain processing the endless stream of generic faces I saw during the day and projecting them onto my subconscious. A kind of digital burnout. But the dreams became regular. They started featuring the same cast of characters, always in the same grim setting, a long, dark, featureless hallway, and always with expressions far removed from their stock photo optimism. There was man in business suit giving thumbs up, who, in the dream, was leaning against the wall, weeping silently. There was multicultural teens sharing a tablet, who were now just staring at a wall, the tablet nowhere to be seen, their eyes completely flat. It was like my mind was getting an uncensored feed of their lives, stripping away the commercial cheer. The real shift happened when I realized the dreams were not random. They were connected to my real life in a deeply intrusive way. I had a huge fight with my landlord about a broken boiler. I went to bed angry and frustrated. That night, I dreamed of contractor with clipboard. In the stock photo, he looks reliable and trustworthy. In my dream, he was standing in the dark hallway, but he was holding a clipboard with a specific piece of text on it. Lease violation, Section 4B, failure to notify. It was a phrase I had read in my lease contract hours before the fight. I woke up cold. How could a generic stock image model, who likely lives thousands of miles away, possibly appear in my dream, referencing a specific, obscure legal clause that had dominated my day? I started a database. I screenshot the faces I saw in my dreams and tracked where I had last encountered them in my work. I gave them names based on their stock photo titles. The creepiest was a woman I called Woman Laughing Alone with Salad. She appeared frequently. In the stock photo, she's ecstatic, utterly delighted by her healthy lunch. In my dream, she was sitting cross-legged in the dark hallway, quietly eating a bowl of plain cold oatmeal, her eyes fixed on the floor. One morning, I was searching for an image for a client, and I came across Woman Laughing Alone with Salad. But there was a new version, released just a week ago. In this version, she was holding a tablet and smiling, but her eyes, if you looked closely, had a faint, almost imperceptible reddening around the lids like she had been crying very recently. The stock photos were updating themselves to reflect the internal reality I was seeing in my dreams. I became convinced that these models were not just models. They were active anchors in some kind of vast, silent network. Their faces, uploaded and categorized, were being used as universal placeholders for human emotion, and my brain, flooded with their images, was accidentally accessing the raw data feed. I tried to talk to my therapist about it. I framed it as a visual processing disorder and recurrent nightmares. When I described man in business suit giving thumbs up, she nodded professionally and told me it was a common psychological phenomenon called capgras delusion, a belief that familiar people have been replaced by identical imposters. But my dreams proved it wasn't delusion. They were precognitive. I was looking for an image of a desk for a furniture client. I saw smiling man with coffee mug. I hated his photo, so I moved on quickly. That night, I dreamed of him. He was sitting in the dark hallway, hunched over, his coffee mug placed carefully on the floor beside him. He wasn't smiling. He looked terrified. He was rocking slightly. The next morning, I opened my local news app. The top story was about an accident downtown. A man had been hit by a taxi while crossing the street. The accompanying image was a picture of the scene, and in the background, being attended to by paramedics, was a smiling man with coffee mug. He was still clutching his coffee mug. He was the victim. The dream had shown me his terror before the accident happened. The stock photo universe was leaking the fate of its models into my sleep. I stopped using stock photos completely. I told my clients I was only using original artwork or Creative Commons images. I went on a digital cleanse, clearing my computer of every last generic face. I thought I was safe. But then, the faces started appearing in my real life. I was at the airport, waiting for a flight. I looked up at the huge electronic billboard displaying an advertisement for a credit card. It was multicultural teens sharing a tablet. But the girl in the image, the one who was supposed to be laughing, was looking directly at me. Her expression was the same flat, empty look I saw in the dream hallway. And as I stared, her head moved just a fractional, impossible turn, tracking my position. I blinked, and the image reset. She was back to her stock smile, but the terror was real. I ran to the internet. I had to find these people. I used reverse image searches on their faces, tracking down the agency they worked for. I found the profile for smiling woman with headset. I found her portfolio, her agency bio. She was a professional model named Sarah. I found her social media profile. It was public. I scrolled through her recent photos. Everything was normal vacations, friends, dinner. But her last photo, a selfie posted 3 days ago, was taken in what looked like a dark apartment. She was wearing a thick sweater, and her face was tired, pale, and her eyes were looking directly at the camera with the same desperate sadness I saw in my dreams. It was the uncensored version. I sent her a direct message. "Are you okay? Do you know the phrase, least violation, section 4B? Her reply came back almost instantly. "Who is this? How do you know that phrase? I've been fighting with my landlord for a week." I realized that the stock photo world wasn't a separate network. It was a universal front end for a huge hidden dataset of real, hyper-monitored lives. These models, paid to be emotionally available for every corporate message, had become psychological proxies for the collective digital unconsciousness, and their raw emotions were being leaked into my mind. I told Sarah everything: the dreams, the sadness, the hallway. She told me her dreams were worse. She said she dreams of a long, dark hallway every night. And in her dream, she sees a man, always a new man, standing in the distance, looking back at her. She said the men in her dreams look like they're reading a document, a contract, a pamphlet, an online ad. She was dreaming of me, the person using her image. I was the reader. She was the content. The last time I saw a stock photo face was the most terrifying. I was working late, and I needed an image of an elderly couple. I searched the database. I found elderly couple holding hands on bench. They were perfect, gentle smiles, warm lighting. I downloaded the image and placed it into my client presentation. I opened the file to check the resolution. And then I saw it. On the woman's cheek, just under her eye, was a tiny, digitally rendered tear. It wasn't visible on the preview thumbnail. It was only visible when zoomed in at 400% on the final file. A detail so subtle, so deliberate, it could only have been added by an entity with full knowledge of her emotional state. I closed the file, shaking. I knew the elderly couple were in danger. The database was starting to embed the true emotion into the final deliverable product. That night, I had the final dream. The dark hallway was crowded. All the faces were there, the sad woman, the weeping man, the scared accident victim, but they weren't looking at me. They were all looking at the elderly couple, who were standing at the end of the hallway holding hands, their faces set in an expression of profound, quiet acceptance. I walked toward them, compelled to warn them. But the elderly man looked past me, his eyes wide with the stock photo terror I had come to know. He was looking at a blank wall just behind my left shoulder. I turned around. The wall wasn't blank anymore. It was filled with light, like a giant screen had turned on. The screen displayed a stock photograph of a happy, generic family. A mother, father, and 2 kids, all laughing together, perfect teeth flashing. But the father in the photograph was me. A younger, happier, utterly oblivious version of me. The woman in the sad headset, the weeping man, the elderly couple. They all looked at me, not with sadness, but with a terrible, silent accusation. I was the next placeholder. I woke up, and I knew what I had to do. I deleted my computer, deleted all my accounts, and quit my job. I now live a life dedicated to being invisible. I avoid cameras, I avoid social media, and I never, ever use the internet for anything that could link my face to a database. I am convinced that the pareidolia law is real. The more a face is consumed by the collective, the more that face is monitored, and the more its emotional reality is hijacked. I still have dreams. But now, the dark hallway is empty. It's quiet. But sometimes, when I'm looking at a reflective surface, a window, a phone screen, I catch my own reflection. And in my reflection's eyes, I see a specific, generic, neutral sadness that doesn't belong to me. It's the sadness of a placeholder, a generic human emotion waiting to be downloaded and used in an advertisement. I'm no longer the reader. I'm the next piece of content, and I know that somewhere, on a server far away, my file is waiting to be used. I just hope they don't use the photo where I'm crying.
Thank you for listening. If you want to continue this journey into the unknown, subscribe and explore the playlist.